Hi everyone, this is Arjun from Wrkbench, founder and CEO. Today I have the privilege and honor of bringing on the show Ben Parr, who is an author as well as a venture capitalist. We'll be talking about, we'll be having a Fireside webinar chat. As you can see, we have a fire in the back, a fireplace running in the background, and we'll be talking about marketing, how to grab attention for your startup, and the science and tips and tricks that you can take away. Ben, would you mind starting us off with a little bit of your background and how you became an operator, an entrepreneur, an investor? A little bit of your background for our audience, please.
That's a long story. I could take the entire time doing that. But the short answer to that is my original claim to fame before, after Northwestern, after graduating, after doing some product stuff, my original claim to fame is as the co-editor and editor at large of Mashable, one of the world's largest technology news websites in the world. And I helped grow that organization, became co-editor, wrote over 2,400 articles, built a huge audience, built a detailed knowledge of startups and technology and culture, and utilized that to do a couple of things. One was to start a venture fund called Dominate Fund to invest in early stage companies like Shots, Ubeam, Graft Concepts, some great companies. And then I wrote a book, which we're talking about today, called Captivology, on the science and psychology of attention, why we pay attention to certain people and products, and how to utilize that science to captivate others. And so I went through over 1,000 studies and research studies in science, psychology, neurology, to understand the fundamentals of human attention and then how it can be applied in business.
What really drove you to actually even take the time and to do something like this? Was it that you saw a lot of your friends or entrepreneurial friends and that they were struggling with actually getting attention, or you just said, let's do it?
It was because I was helping startups, and all the startups, they asked me for help in attention, and they were helping for specifically like how do we get more press, marketing, customer user acquisition, virality, all sorts of things like that. And I realized it all kind of fell around attention, and that attention was the fundamental currency of the modern economy, and that nothing could be done without attention. And so I decided to dig a little bit deeper, and I just became really fascinated. And I've had book offers over the years, but it was the first time I really thought this was something I actually wanted to spend time looking into and researching that I thought could actually help people and would be within my wheelhouse.
And you wrote here in the book, actually, I have a direct excerpt from the
oh, nice.
Which I just dragged into Wrkbench. And you can see it says, Inside Captivology is an exploration of how attention works, focus on the triggers that can attract the attention of whatever audience you are targeting in any industry or situation. Can this really be applied in other fields besides startups? I mean, can it be applied in dating? Can it be applied in financial industries? I mean,
in anything. Well, so the book's not a startup book. Let's be clear. Startups are obviously a key part. I'm sure a big part of this audience here is startups. But I wrote this so that it was applicable to any industry. And, I actually interviewed the leading researcher in dating from Northwestern University on dating and attraction. And I interviewed David Copperfield, the magician, to understand how attention is used in performance. I interviewed Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Super Mario, to understand how attention is utilized in video games and how you can design a better game and design a better program. It can be in any industry. The whole point is that these triggers are fundamental to human nature, and it doesn't matter what industry you are or what culture you are. The triggers I talk about in the book, the science of attention, is universal.
So let's talk about those specific triggers that you talk about. I have another excerpt here talking about the 7 triggers themselves. Can you walk us through each of them individually in a very short format and explain exactly how you came up with that?
Repeat that again.
I have the excerpt here for the 7 triggers that you just...
Yes, there we go. The 7.
The 7 and themselves. So can you walk us through the individual triggers themselves and how that can apply, say, for me as a business owner or someone else as an operator?
So the 7 triggers are what the core of the book is about. And I obviously suggest to anybody, if you want to go deeper into this topic, read the book and read through the whole thing. Oh, yes. Download, audiobook, the whole thing. So basically, what I will say is that these 7 triggers go from what I call immediate attention to long attention. And I need to first actually explain the 3 stages of attention because they're fundamental to understanding the triggers. And so I talk in the book about the 3 stages of attention and how we pay attention in stages, like a bonfire, where unlike in a bonfire, if you've ever started one, I don't know if you started one, Arjun.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, you're an arson, I understand. But when you're starting a fire, you don't just throw logs and expect it to go. You got to start with a spark, then you got to build it up with kindling, and then you can put the logs on the fire. Now, attention works in the same way. The spark is something I call immediate attention. It's our unconscious attention. It's our automatic reaction to the world around us. Short attention is the kindling. It's the when we turn the conscious attention is when we listen to a song or see a movie for the first time. And then long attention is our long-term interest and the most important form of attention. And that's when we get to, you know, people lining up around the street to get an Apple product. And that's the fire, the bonfire that lasts all night.
Interesting. And
I guess I should talk about the triggers now, but the triggers are triggers that capture attention at these 3 stages. For example, the automaticity trigger captures attention subconsciously by using sensory cues, colors, symbols, you see it right there, to automatically capture our attention. For example, Arjun, if you're a hitchhiker on the side of the road and you want to have the best chance of being picked up, what color shirt should you wear?
I actually have the exact answer right here.
Yes, you do. And what is that answer?
It's the red.
So it's funny enough, I actually tell people it's gender specific. Red isn't typical, but for men, any bright color will do. It could be a bright blue, it can be an orange, it can be a neon, because they have higher contrast to their surroundings, the dark grass and the dark ground. For women, it is red, and it's because on average, women will be picked up 13% of the time. There was a study they did for any color except for the color red, in which case it's 21% of the time, and that's because of the subconscious associations we have with red and romanticism.
Interesting. I'm just writing that exactly down. Higher pickup rate. And why is that? I mean, so we know green is associated with nature, and it allows us to be calm. It allows us to be, you know, more with ourselves, essentially. I guess the word is calm itself. What is it about red that makes, you know, higher click-throughs? I mean, you talked about higher click-through rates on websites. What is it that makes it so captivating for people to just click through and get more attention?
Well, it's again, there's 2 things that matter. There's contrast. So the contrast a sensory stimuli has with its surroundings, and associations. Okay. And what associations we have with those colors or stimuli. And so bright colors work because they just have higher contrast, and the science shows we automatically pay attention to things with higher contrast.
Interesting.
Now, associations are things like red and romanticism is deeply rooted in most cultures, and especially Western cultures. It's different colors than Eastern. And yet, for example, cold is universal color in every culture. It's a blue or bright blue. And so it's oftentimes the culture that makes those colors pop out more or less. That's the way, that's why you need to not put green packaging on your products in China. It won't work because green is not calming. Green is part of funerals of death in parts of China and Chinese culture. So you have to know what those associations are.
White, I know in the Chinese culture is also associated with, you know, other meat definitions and other things, and never give a white flower on an occasion.
Yeah.
Let's talk about another part of your book itself. So let's switch over here. Well, the past few years, I've heard way too many people misuse a famous quote from 1989 film Field of Dreams, declaring, "If you build it, he will come." What gets you so annoyed about this quote itself in the Star of Space?
Because it doesn't work anymore. Because you can't, that's just telling people, oh, you build the most advanced, technically best product ever, and everyone will be your customer. It's not true. You have to bring it to their attention because there's so much being put in front of them. You can't just expect you build the best thing and it'll work. It just doesn't work that way in the modern world, and we're teaching people the wrong thing. We're teaching them a thing that will not help them succeed in the modern era. You have to be able to captivate and command attention if you want to be successful in the modern era, whether you want to be a musician, whether you want to be a marketer, whether you want to be a founder, whether you want to be a trader. It doesn't matter. You have to captivate somebody or something, and you need to gain those skills to be successful in the modern workplace.
So what should entrepreneurs be doing today in order to get the attention, you know, of the likes of you or other customers? I mean, if you build it and it's not going to drive success, attention. I mean, what are the first 2 things an entrepreneur should do with limited resources and capital?
I mean, beyond read the book, It's a couple of things. It's build a product that's more captivating by utilizing the kinds of reward triggers and other triggers that captivate their interest. And this is where, like, one of the people I interviewed for the book was Neri Eyal, the author of Hooked. And it's a fantastic book that I think every entrepreneur should read, in addition to Captivology, that teaches how to build habit-forming loops. And I think that's really important for new products. On the outside, you have to build a full and complete marketing plan and understand who your audience really is and what they actually want, and talk to them and know what they're looking for and build for them and then market to them. And building the detailed marketing plan is something I can't cover in a single webinar. But I talk a lot about how you build credibility among journalists and among customers, utilizing your investors, utilizing your background, utilizing your connections, and how you build expertise through content marketing, which is free to use, but can be very valuable. Not enough entrepreneurs utilize that as a tool, as one of many examples.
I want to go back to your suggestion of the book topic itself. I want to make sure I capture all of the suggestions coming through. 1 second. Interesting. So you said which book author you had interviewed earlier?
Neri Eyal, N-I-R-E-Y-A-L.
N-I-R?
Yep, and space E-Y-A-L.
E-Y-A-L. And the book
is Hooked.
Hooked. Oh, I remember this. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm just going to make a list of other resources, and if you have anything else, we'll put it back down here. So let's talk about one other thing. One of my favorite shows, and obviously one of your favorite shows as well, at least one you highlighted in your book, Big Bang Theory. I tend to be very old school as well when it comes to talking to people and exchanging saying thank you to them. So I write thank you notes, I give business cards, I give hugs. One thing you alluded here is all about being warm and being more human than normal. And the example here you use in your book is Sheldon Cooper basically saying to Leonard, hey, can you make sure you give the person give them some hot beverage to make them feel better? What about that makes it so compelling for startups, or why should we as entrepreneurs be more warm to our customers or other investors?
Well, so there's actually 2 points of that part of the book. So the warm thing, I actually make 2 points. One, there's scientific studies, multiple, a lot,
okay,
that show a direct correlation between physical warmth and interpersonal warmth. And so it actually does not actually matter scientifically if it's someone directly giving you a cup of coffee. It's just by merely holding something warm, you will feel more warm feelings. And by feeling more warm feelings, you're more likely to make a deal. You're more likely to like the person across from you. This is why I tell every entrepreneur when they're having clients, buy them a warm beverage of any kind. Because if they're holding it, they're going to like you more subconsciously. Now, the act of giving is yet another kind of reward. It builds what I call acknowledgement. And acknowledgement is the final trigger of my book, and it shows that we pay attention to the people and things who pay attention to us and provide us with validation, empathy, and understanding. And so what matters more than anything is showing that validation, empathy, and understanding, because we pay attention back and we reflect it back like a mirror. It's the reason, for example, we pay so much attention to celebrities. The best ones find a way to reflect our values and reflect who we are. Taylor Swift, by merely sending a gift to a few of her fans on Christmas and that going viral, shows she cares about all of her fans, and her fans care about her more in return. Same thing with when a company does that. When a Google comes in and brings Google Fiber to a city, it shows that they care, and it shows that it makes them seem bigger than just a corporation.
So it's essentially a differentiating skill or tactic, essentially, in a pool of companies that all this taken to one-way street.
Yes.
What are some other good examples of companies that are getting that right, or people getting that right? I mean, some examples of small companies that entrepreneurs can relate to, and as takeaway as an example, or even big companies.
Interesting question. I think every company, some companies are good and bad. It all depends. I wouldn't say Uber's a warm company, but I do think when they do things like when they do Uber kittens and Uber puppies, it's actually quite a good thing, and showing like we care. We're gonna literally send you the cutest things ever to go and play with. like you can't be mad, at least for a while, at a company that literally delivers you puppies and kittens. But I think there's other companies that, you know, like I've seen some companies do horrendous customer service. I'm not going to name them. And then I've seen others that do actively reach out, you know, I even like who actively reach out and are like, you know, let's help you through that process. And that's where, like, you know, like frankly, for example, some of the airlines like Southwest and that do a very good job, in Virgin, of reaching out when someone says something bad. I know that can't relate to entrepreneurs, but you can use the same techniques. And just when you see that kind of thing, reaching out, being like, I want to help you. I want to fix whatever problem you may have. That's validating and showing like I care about what your problems are. Airbnb did this. Does this very well when people they used to not do it well, and then they realized they needed to do it very well. And so they're very fast and prompt nowadays. When something goes wrong with an Airbnb, they reach out, they find a way to help, they find a way to assist. They have a large guarantee for if there's damage.
Another good example would be, I mean, Tony Hsieh with Zappos. I mean, the whole, pursuit of happiness and creating happiness for the customer.
Yes, I'm going to note this. So Zappos was able to be acquired and be a successful company because it was so focused on the happiness and customer service. Tony was successful because he's super creative and he's super risk-taking. It doesn't seem like his last experiment in management has taken hold as well as it should have. So sometimes you've got to also be able to see when some of your experiments are not working correctly or the best, and be able to see it and pull back sometimes.
It's the whole idea of, in the startup space, having the MVP. So not only product, but maybe a service itself, something not tangible, but know when to cut it and know when to implement it and know when to execute it. And
exactly.
The resource and the capital that goes behind it, don't be, an idiot and start, wasting resources itself. What are some other, so you write here, you wrote Captivology out of necessity. I mean, do you have let's say, other examples of authors that influenced you besides the author of Hooked, that, kind of influenced you into writing this book as well, and it's something you took away and put into the book?
Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow, I think, is a required read for every entrepreneur, because it shows you the he's one of the greatest psychologists of the modern era, and really brings a true understanding of the subconscious psychology that really drives us.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Daniel?
Daniel Kahneman, K-A-H-M, I don't know exactly how to spell it.
Okay, what's the book called?
Yeah, it's called Thinking, Fast and Slow.
Okay,
it's one of the pinnacle books of psychology in the last 2 decades, I believe, and an absolute necessity of a read. And it influenced me before even I did this book. I also was influenced by, and this is a different topic, by Quiet, which was written by Susan Cain. And the book Quiet talks about introversion versus extroversion and understanding of the true power of introverts. And I'm an extrovert, as you can maybe tell, but I have such a strong, like everyone has introverted tendencies, and I have such a stronger understanding of the difference and how attention plays for both, because attention is not, hey, here I am, everything all the time. Attention is even more important for an introvert, because you need to be more intelligent about the way in which you direct attention. And ideally for introvert, it's directing it away from you and towards your passion, your cause, and your idea.
What is that difference? I mean, I'm writing down right now, important on how to direct attention.
Well, an introvert just doesn't want attention for themselves. They don't want to be in the limelight. They don't want to they don't want to be a Barack Obama or a Kim Kardashian or a Jennifer Lawrence. But they may want to be behind the scenes directing attention towards, Hillary Clinton, if that's a candidate, or they may want to be directing attention towards their startup and building a great company. So you need to understand, where does attention need to be directed to? And one thing I was taught by Sheryl Sandberg when I interviewed her for the book is that the people who deserve our attention most and capture our attention the most are the ones who provide us with motivation to achieve something better than ourselves, and provide us with that positive momentum and motivation. Because we don't pay attention all that long to flashes in the pan, but we pay attention to true leaders, to smart people, to people that make us passionate, that believe that we are going to change the world for the better in some way.
Let's switch over and talk about you as an investor now. You talked about your book, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs in New York City definitely look towards you for advice and mentorship and whatnot, especially through the book itself. They have a lot of advice that they've taken away to build their products and services. Why are you an investor? I mean, what makes you invest in companies today? And give me an example of one entrepreneur or one company that you've invested in, and you just felt it was the perfect match for you for Dominate.
So I'm an investor because I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm an entrepreneur because I'm an investor, because I'm passionate about helping bring positive change in the world through business and innovation, because I think startups are a very powerful, if not the most powerful way to instill positive change in the world. And by investing in great companies like Shots and Ubeam and Graft Concepts, I think that we can, I think I am making that positive impact. But to me, it's a fluid kind of thing. So I'm always very happy when I'm helping, Meredith Perry bring wireless power to the world, or when I'm helping John Shahidi, the founder of Shots, bring positivity and anti-bullying to the new millennial and teenage audience, or Ming Yin, which is helping connect Western culture with Eastern audiences. And these are the kinds of things that fascinate me, and I really like investing and working with companies that are building these kinds of platforms. And it's just not the investing; it's also the advising. I advise Rebel Mouse, which I think is a New York company, which I think is going, which has already changed the way in which brands interact with their consumers. That process is broken, and I think the content focus that Rebel Mouse is brings a much better experience. Or Angel Hack, which I'm an advisor to, is helping create a new class of developers and make people excited to be developers and to be recognized for that work, and to connect those developers with the companies that are going to hire them and give them the careers they want.
You mentioned Rebel Mouse. I do want to give a shout out to Paul Berry over there. He was definitely one of my earlier mentors and gave a lot of feedback during the initial years of the company itself, Wrkbench. So what type of check size do you guys come in at, and what kind of field are you looking to go into in 2016? Because we are automotive technology. Is that up your alley, or what gets you excited?
So what gets me excited are platform companies, and I really care less about the industry and more whether they're building the next generation of platforms that are going to increase efficiency and scale in their industry. I'm uber excited maybe because it is a platform that connected consumers and producers, so specifically riders and drivers, in a way that was never done before, that and completely made the industry bigger. Ubeam excited me because the opportunity to create a platform for energy where you never had to have a cord again was worth any kind of risk. And so I'm excited by ones who are thinking big and trying to find a way to instill a very large-scale positive platform-style change in the world. And that's one of the kinds of things that really excites me. I know there was another part of that question.
So what if an entrepreneur is coming up to you, at which stage should they come up to you? Should they come
So I'm a seed stage investor. Right now I'm writing smaller checks between 25 and 100. That'll change probably later this year. It'll get bigger. It depends on the time in the cycle, and it depends on the company. But it's a smaller size. I'm never lead, like Dominant Fund and myself, we never lead rounds. We're always usually second or third largest investor in a round, because we provide very specific value. We don't do the day-to-day hand-holding of how you build a business and how you set up a board. We do the nitty-gritty of here's how you build the marketing plan, here's how you build attention for the product, here's how you pitch press, here's how you deal with a press crisis.
It's actually it's an interesting model that you focus on the marketing aspect of it, and while other firms will only give you capital and maybe the tech know-how or make some biz dev introductions. It's interesting because I'm seeing Bowery Capital, First Round Capital, a lot of companies actually becoming agencies, if you will, like ad agencies. When they invest, they put a biz dev person on your team, or part-time, or a marketing person, a PR person. Is that how Dominate Fund operates as well, where you work with your portfolio companies and you put on ad hoc people, or
no? We don't put on ad hoc people. Liga and Dreesen and others do a great job of that. We just have very specific expertise that our companies mine, and I help them, and we help them with those specific things and introductions and training them. But the biggest thing I think is like training our founders to be better at those skills and training their teams to be better at those skills. And we have all that experience, and so we hand that experience off, as well as our contacts, as well as our connections. If it's the later stages, I think, where they start you add those kinds of layers, and that's not what we do. Again, we are very good at training founders how to speak to press, how to build those relationships, how to build those marketing plans for the long term, because those are fundamental skills you as a founder must have.
And it goes back to being more human, essentially. So you, in essence, you help founders be more human to customers, to investors, to external facing organizations and people, so they can actually get ahead in biz dev or marketing and PR. And
how to speak their language, because there's a different game and a different language. Just as there is a game and a strategy to fundraising, and there's a game and a strategy to press, and a game and a strategy to marketing. And if you are at a disadvantage, if you don't have that knowledge, or you don't have an investor on your team that has that knowledge.
No, I agree. I mean, we're very fortunate to have some pretty top-notch investors who constantly mentor me. But I remember in the earlier years, just banging the pavement and just hitting the pavement and trying to learn from entrepreneurs and whatnot at conferences and meetups. But it's definitely a huge add-on, at least personally, I think, for getting the training itself. The last question is as far as the Dominate Fund is concerned. So when you invest in companies, do you do follow-ons, and if so, what kind of check size would you do a follow-on on?
A follow-on, yes, for the best performers, and the check size entirely depends on how much we invested and what the new round is. You can never say how much a follow-on check is going to be without knowing what's going to be happening to those future rounds.
I remember having listening to a VC at Launch Festival talk about this, and how follow-on, or the ability to follow on, is indicative of how a VC firm will work with their entrepreneurs and whatnot. That's why I bring that up. And how big is your fund size itself?
We don't typically talk about the fund size. It's not a huge one, it's several million, but let's leave it at announcements coming soon. Announcement coming soon. Okay, I'll add that into the board as the announcements come in. Hopefully this will be a live board itself. Any last tips or piece of advice you'd give to our entrepreneurs? I mean, we have entrepreneurs, starting in high school. We have entrepreneurs in their 30s. What would you do if you were as an entrepreneur right now with nothing to lose and just going in to follow your dreams? All right, two things. First, a book for all the entrepreneurs out there. Go read Venture Deals by Brad Feld, my friends Brad and Jason. That book, I think, is also required reading for every entrepreneur. If you haven't already read it and understand how the venture process works and how deal terms and structures are done, read it now. It's always changing, but the basics are the same. Brad Feld, and who was the other author? Well, it's Brad Feld and Jason Mendelson, but Brad Feld, if you just search Venture Deals by Brad Feld, you'll find it. Got it. So here's the big thing I would say, and this goes slightly counterintuitive for some people. I actually think that there is a lot of benefit for a lot of especially young entrepreneurs to get some training and mentorship, ideally at a startup or a mid-stage company. And I say this because you learn how to do things like build products and design PRDs, how to manage small teams effectively, the tools that they use to do it. The mistakes that are made on a constant basis and how to overcome them. I always find the entrepreneurs who have a little bit of that experience and training, either they received deep mentorship, or probably more likely they were at a startup, or they were at a great company like Google and they received that mentorship, are always much more prepared. And it's very rare for a teenage entrepreneur to just put down and succeed. I obviously know a few, like Jessica Ma and Brian Wong, but the vast majority, even Brian Wong, honestly, had training at Dig before he started his company. Yeah. And so, the training matters, and don't feel like joining a startup and not starting your own thing immediately is a failure or a bad thing. It's a really good thing. Take every learning experience you can and build and learn before you truly build something. And one more thing. Always build something you're super passionate about. Don't build because you feel like you're an entrepreneur and you have to build something. Only build when you believe that what you're building has to exist in the world and nobody else sees it the way you do and no one else is trying it, and it bugs the crap out of you and you wake up and you go to sleep every day thinking about it. If TaskRabbit's Leah Boosk, she wasn't trying to be an entrepreneur when she started TaskRabbit. She just saw that the world should have a marketplace for freelance jobs and people to connect. And she was miffed that it didn't exist. So she locked herself in a room for 8 to 12 weeks right after IBM and just built the thing. And it needed to exist in the world. She wasn't trying to be an entrepreneur. It happened because she saw the problem and had to be solved. Only if you truly have the problem that has to be solved. I do not need to see yet another social app that has a slightly different take on how a photo is manipulated. That doesn't solve a new fundamental problem. Solve new fundamental problems. That's my last word.
Ben, thank you so much for talking about your book, yourself as an entrepreneur, as well as an investor today. It's been a huge honor having you on the Wrkbench webinar Fireside Chat. And definitely we'll stay in touch. For our audience out there, if you want to continue the chat off, if you want to continue the conversation offline, use the hashtag Wrkbench chats. Ben, any last piece of advice you want to give before we end the show?
I got it all.
You got it all. We have it all visualized here, and we'll be uploading it to Flickr as well. So thank you again, Ben, and to the audience for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, take care.